Overnight, Republican Greg Gianforte dealing a blow to Democrats with a special election victory.
When you make a mistake, you have to own up to it.
There's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
Speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
I should not have responded in the way that I did, and for that I'm sorry.
You don't think it's because a guy who's in office now has said very horrible things about reporters and has said that the reporters are the enemy of the American people?
There's so much hostility, frankly, to the press, a lot of it generated by, you know, the Donald Trump rallies.
Everyone wants to talk about President Trump, but let's discuss Tom Perez and his cussing crusade that he's been giving on so many different fundraisers. I get tired of it, and you know what? Middle America, America in general, is tired of it as well.
NATO's new sheriff. President Trump tells allies to pay their fair share.
I have been very, very direct. NATO members must finally contribute their fair share.
I don't think it's going to work until he starts pulling troops out.
The plague of leaks at U.S. agencies took a troubling new turn.
The people who leaked the British story were not in the White House. They were in the intelligence community, and they ought to go to jail.
And today he's with us, and it's Fleet Week here in New York City.
You know that song, In Your Next 30 Years? He wrote that song. Tim McGraw made it famous. He is so good. He sings a song. He's going to sing it today. It says, I wish you were a beer.
Right,
I love it.
Me and my daughter, every time we were on a long road trip for soccer, we always say we put on anything country music, new country, and we just say how long will it be until they refer to whiskey or beer?
Whiskey.
Right, and it's just it's also a little fun game. Some people do the license plate game.
Yeah.
We talk about.
You should add a dog and a breakup.
Right. Yeah. I will add this. Keurig is the sponsor this year.
Yes, for the
and
All-American
they have solved my family issues because as a family, we do not know how to make coffee. So therefore, too strong, too light, this water's bad, doesn't matter. This one cup at a time has brought us closer together.
And in fact, in our coffee break area, we've got a Keurig corner that we're going to be in a little later on.
Well, we thank Keurig for that, and we thank you for changing Brian's life.
There you go. And also, I have a wife named Kathy and a sister named Kathy.
Right.
Coincidence? And we're glad both of them were born.
Right. That's right. All right. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Summer starts this weekend. Meanwhile, breaking overnight, this is gigantic news. Republican congressional candidate Greg Gianforte has won that special election out in Montana.
Thank you, Montana!
His win comes just hours after he's charged with body slamming a reporter caught on audio.
Joining us live with breaking details from our nation's capital, Mr. Griff Jenkins. Well, you can say he's a fighter, right, Griff?
That's right, guys. Good morning. The voters of Montana have spoken. Gianforte with a decisive win, but he began that celebration by first apologizing, having stayed out of the public eye in this last 24 hours as the voters went to the polls. It was his first comment since being charged with assault.
When you make a mistake, you have to own up to it. That's the Montana way. I'm not proud of what happened. I should not have responded in the way that I did, and for that I'm sorry. I should not have treated that reporter that way, and for that I'm sorry, Mr. Ben Jacobs.
But in the end, the body slamming incident caught on tape was not enough to deter Montanans.
We'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
Speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
I'm sick and tired of you guys. The last time that came here, you did the same thing.
Gianforte easily top political newcomer and folk singer Rob Quist. You see the results there. Gianforte with 50.4%, Quist with almost 44%. Quist conceded the race by telling supporters that Montanans will hold Gianforte accountable as Gianforte vowed to drain the swamp.
I'm going to Washington to get things done, to drain the swamp and fight for Montana families.
As to whether Gianforte will face opposition to his being seated because of that incident, House Speaker Paul Ryan told reporters yesterday that he would not stand in the way of letting Montana decide for themselves before he gets to town, though. Guys, Gianforte will have to appear in court by June 7th to face those charges, and I might note he's going to face more pesky reporters.
A lot of them. All right, Griff, thank you very much. So how did he win? A lot of people said, oh, by body slamming that reporter, he's obviously going to lose. But in Montana, they mail in the ballot. There were 259,000 mail-in ballots returned before that particular incident, although some people called up and said, hey, election board, I was an early voter, and now I would like to change my vote. Don't know which way, but the people said, you know what, that's the problem with early voting. You can't change your vote.
I was glad he apologized. I thought that was the right thing to do. And, you know, maybe he was frustrated because it sounded like the guy, someone else from The Guardian, had just asked him those same questions the night before.
About health care.
Yeah, but I do think it's ridiculous for the left to blame a Republican President Trump. It's no different than Republicans blaming the mainstream media for driving him to this point, which both arguments would be ridiculous.
Let's see an example of other networks taking an honest and candid view of why Gianforte body slammed, allegedly, that reporter.
I don't think it's because a guy who's in office now has said very horrible things about reporters and has said that the reporters are the enemy of the American people.
No,
I think that has nothing to do with anything, that people feel that they can get away with it, because I don't believe that you actually believe that. There's no way you there's no way you believe what you're saying if you don't think that's true.
There's so much hostility, frankly, to the press, a lot of it generated by, you know, the Donald Trump rallies, frankly, and a lot of my colleagues faced the blowback from that. So this is kind of an extension of that.
You can draw a straight line from Republican candidates thinking that sort of behavior is okay when you have Donald Trump berating reporters throughout the entire campaign.
So it's Donald Trump's fault.
Never even met the guy. What does that have to do with anything? Of course, the heated debate that always exists in Montana. He never should have done this, but what a leap it is to blame Donald Trump. However, if you think about the tone and tenor since President Trump won, look at what's happened on the Democratic side and the expletives being thrown out. That did not elude Dana Lash last night.
They want to accuse everyone else of fomenting violence, of instigating violence, of violent rhetoric. Tucker, I have been seeing this. I know you've seen this too for over 10 years now. I get tired of it. And you know what? Middle America, America in general, is tired of it as well. I had so many people who called into my radio program today, Tucker, who said, you know what? Maybe the media deserves it because we're tired of being lied about. We're tired of being manipulated. And we're tired of them excusing awful things done to us in the name of partisan ideology. This is the point we are at because people hate media this badly.
I think that when the mainstream media found out that Gianforte was a Republican, they were like, yes, we're going with this story. If he had been a Democrat, it would have been a totally different narrative. Either they wouldn't have covered it or they would have said, oh, he had to do this.
Or the Democrats have to fight back. It's their only chance to body slam their opponent.
There was a poll out, apparently with political insiders, just a couple of days before. It looked like it was within 2 points, but in the end, the Republican won by, it looks like, about 5 points. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about Donald Trump. You know, during the campaign, he made it very clear, you know, maybe NATO's obsolete. You know, they just aren't a 21st century operation, and so it was interesting to see him with the other NATO leaders yesterday, and he did what he said he would do on the campaign trail.
And that was to knock over Montenegro and make sure you're in the front of the line?
Hold on, I'm coming through. No, it was simply to say, hey, everybody here in front of this $1 billion fantastic new headquarters, are you paying your fair share? No. Watch.
23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. This is not fair to the people and taxpayers of the United States. And many of these nations owe massive amounts of money from past years and not paying in those past years.
Error.
Over the last 8 years, the United States spent more on defense than all other NATO countries combined. If NATO countries made their full and complete contributions, then NATO would be even stronger than it is today, especially from the threat of terrorism.
to the tune of about $100 million. What you didn't see there was the cutaway of the Luxembourg leader leaning over to the French leader, and it looks like they're making a smug remark about the president as if they think it's a big joke that he's calling them out.
If there is a time for him to be blunt and candid, this is it. He is the art of the deal. He's trying to make deals. He's calling them out face to face.
Well, and the deal is that everybody has to pay 2% of their GDP. Look at France. They pay under that by about 2%, or rather 0.2%. Turkey's under that. Germany's way under. Italy's way under, as are the Netherlands and Belgium as well.
That is insane to me that 23 out of the 28 are not paying that 2%.
I know, and yet they say, Mr. President, make sure you say something bad about Russia in your remarks because they are a threat. And he actually did. He included that in his remarks.
There you go.
All right, Jillian, what's happening with you?
Good Friday morning to you guys. To you guys at home as well. Let's start with a Fox News alert right now. Las Vegas warned it could be ISIS's next target. Police alerting hotels and casinos about a credible threat after the terror group released a new video showing the Sin City Strip, encouraging attacks on soft targets. The FBI now working with intelligence agencies and international law enforcement as hundreds of thousands of tourists travel to Las Vegas this Memorial Day weekend. Also breaking, more overnight raids as the hunt for the terror cell connected to the Manchester massacre intensifies. 10 people arrested, 8 remain in custody. Authorities say ISIS set the stage for Salman Abedi to carry out the concert bloodbath and fear it's only a matter of time before another attack. The last victim now identified as 15-year-old Megan Hurley. 22 killed in the explosion, including 7 young girls. President Trump's border order once again shot down by a federal appeals court, setting the stage for a Supreme Court showdown. Attorney General Jeff Sessions slamming the ruling, saying judges are interfering with our commander-in-chief's national security powers. The revised travel pause affects 6 majority Muslim countries for 90 days, giving the Trump administration time to come up with a tougher extreme vetting process. And he made the ultimate sacrifice fighting for his country in Iraq, and this Memorial Day weekend, Dale Earnhardt Jr. will honor him on the racetrack. The star driver carrying Army Private First Class James McClamrock's name on his car for the Coca-Cola 600 in North Carolina. His family blown away by the gesture.
I've never even been on a racetrack, and now I'm going to be standing with one of the world's best drivers and waving at the crowd so that they know that this mom and this driver are here for James.
So what's happening in the race is all 40 race cars will feature names of fallen service members. And that's a look at your headlines on this Friday.
Great thing to do over Memorial Day.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Meanwhile, it's one of the most powerful moments from the president's first foreign trip.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers.
But many in the media say it's one of the worst moments. Really? We're going to analyze that next.
And compliments to the chef. You're under arrest. ICE agents ate breakfast at a cafe and then arrested 3 of the cooks. And people are steamed.
It's a Fox News alert. Brand new video just in of President Trump and other G7 leaders in Italy. That coming as the president's foreign trip has focused on fighting terror. But some in the media haven't seen it that way. Here to break it all down for us is Dow Jones reporter Joe Simonson. Thanks for being with us, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Let's go through some of the sound bites that we've heard during his trip. We'll start with when he spoke in Saudi Arabia to the Arab leaders, and he was confronting Islamic extremism. Listen to this, and we'll talk about it.
There is still much work to be done. That means honestly confronting the crisis of Islamic extremism and the Islamicists and Islamic terror of all kinds. And it means standing together against the murder of innocent Muslims, the oppression of women, the persecution of Jews, and the slaughter of Christians.
Joe, he didn't use the phrase radical Islam, so the mainstream media is saying he has softened on terror.
It's ridiculous. I mean, President Trump has increased bombings on ISIS by 50%. I mean, for all I care, he can convert to Islam in front of the entire world. As long as he's bombing the right people, that's an improvement over President Obama's policies.
Look at some of these headlines. Politico says Trump strikes moderate tone on Islam. The Atlantic says Trump turns politically correct in Saudi Arabia. New York Times, Trump softens tone on Islam but calls for purge of foot soldiers of evil.
Sure. I mean, that all sounds great to me. As like I said, I mean, we tried 8 years of kind of the phony intellectualism of Obama, and I don't think it really made ISIS hate us any less. And as long as he's bombing the right people and getting rid of the people who want to harm you and me, he can say whatever the hell he wants.
All right, after what happened in the UK, the terrorist attack on Monday, he called those terrorists losers. Listen.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers in life. I won't call them monsters because they would like that term.
All right, look, Joe, at some of these headlines. The Guardian says losers, Trump's favorite word, may diminish the gravity of UK attack. Washington Post says a not so innocent abroad. Trump bubbles across the Middle East. CNN, evil losers. That's all you got, President Trump? What do you think?
Is that incorrect? I mean, we have to have more sophisticated kind of language when talking about complete barbarians? Again, they are losers. This is not controversial. The American people don't think that's controversial. Trump nailed it. They're losers.
All right. Thanks, Jeff, for being with us.
Thank you.
And coming up next, he is the...
We've got some quick Friday morning headlines for you right now. A potentially deadly attack on police thwarted at Phoenix Comic-Con. Police taking down a suspect armed with knives and guns who they say intended to kill cops. The suspect allegedly snapping pictures of officers at the event, then posting them online with threatening messages. And the FBI is investigating after a newlywed mom disappears at sea. Her husband reported Isabella Hellman is missing after their boat capsized near the Bahama Islands. He was rescued by the Coast Guard and claims his wife was wearing a life jacket on the boat. The FBI not saying if foul play is suspected. All right, Brian.
All right, Steve, organizers of New York City's Puerto Rican Day Parade are standing firm in a decision to honor a leader of a terror group recently released from prison. President Obama mysteriously commuted the 74-year-old Oscar Lopez Rivera's sentence after he served 35 years for his role as a FALN group responsible for 100 bombings across the United States. Now, one of the group's bombings was at Francis Tavern in New York. He killed Frank Connor and 3 other innocent people. Frank's son, Joe Connor, joins us now. Joe, first body blow is this guy's out. The second one, he's going to be marching in a parade in his honor?
Yeah, he's a terrorist, and they're putting him as the main day honoree of freedom, some sort of award they're going to give him, and he's going to be leading the parade as a symbol of freedom. And he's a terrorist. He's a convicted terrorist.
Sponsors are out of this. Yes. Officials are questioning whether they should be marching in this. Yep. Where is this going?
Look, I think what's going to happen is the sponsors have gone, so money starts to dry up. The politicians have looked at it and said, wait a second, I don't know if I want... Chuck Schumer says he's going to be traveling that day. The police commissioner has dropped out. Several of the police and fire unions have dropped out. What I think is going to happen is this will continue to happen because there's some sanity in this world, Brian, thank God. They're understanding that a terrorist can't be leading a parade and getting a medal for freedom. So I think they're going to eventually have to make Lopez go and try to rebuild the parade that way.
Well, the mayor's going to still march anyway. The governor is probably not. But if he's going to run for president, does he want to be seen marching in a parade with the terrorists?
It's a great question. What are the optics for Governor Cuomo being seen proudly walking up the street with a terrorist next to him as he runs for president?
The word pride is not what you feel. You feel anger. He killed this guy's part of an organization that plotted and planned to kill your dad and was successful.
Look, it's bad enough that he was offered clemency in 1999 and turned it down. Stayed in prison. We went to his parole hearing in 2011, kept him in. Then Obama releases him on his last days in office. That's bad enough. But taking a terrorist that was responsible for my father's murder, and making him a leader of a parade and a hero, it's beyond the pale, Brian.
Well, just a second. I want to go and read his apology. Wait a second. He never apologized. No. He never owned up to it. He has no regrets.
No, he said he said when we went out to the parole hearing, if we were looking for someone who would apologize, we came to the wrong guy. That's the kind of person we released. He wanted to create a Marxist state in Puerto Rico. He didn't believe in freedom. There was nothing about this guy who deserves any accolades.
And just keep in mind, whoever did it put a bomb behind in a Frontis Tavern where Washington said goodbye to his troops, a historic place, and they put a bomb there. It just blew up, and your father just happened to be eating there.
Exactly. It was a birthplace of freedom in this country. And, you know, you don't have to be the one who walked the bomb in to be responsible for that. As a matter of fact, under law, if you're part of a conspiracy, you're responsible for all acts of that conspiracy. Bin Laden didn't fly a plane into the Trade Center. Let's put it that way.
Joe Connor, thanks so much. Son of Frank Connor, killed by an organization headed by this guy that just got out.
Oscar Lopez Rivera.
Right. And if you're going to be in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, you might want to rethink it if he's going to be there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, coming up straight ahead, compliments to the chef. You're under arrest. ICE agents ate breakfast at a cafe and arrested 3 of its cooks. And people are outraged, believe it or not. And President Trump calling on our NATO allies to pay their fair share.
NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations.
But so many countries are skipping out on the bill. So what are we going to do? Let's ask former Secretary of Defense, who also had a significant role in NATO. Donald Rumsfeld's here with Colonel Tom Mannion. Don't miss a minute. 2 days from Memorial Day.
Leah sent us this photo writing, having students that will drop everything to help put flags on the graves of veterans makes me a proud American.
Mark sends us this picture of his daughter writing how you could not be proud of that smile. I am not sure. I'm sure they are. Hashtag proud dad.
And Alex sends us this patriotic picture of him and his grandpa celebrating the 4th of July last year. On this Friday before Memorial Day, we would love to see your proud American photographs. Please email them to us at friendsoffoxnews.com, or you could tweet them or Facebook.
On that note, we bring in former Secretary of Defense, Mr. Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, as well as Colonel Tom Mannion, who's the father of Travis Mannion. We'll hear about Travis's story, because as we remember your son on Memorial Day weekend. But first, we'll talk to you, Mr. Secretary, about the latest threat. ISIS is... there's a new video out threatening Las Vegas, threatening the United States this weekend. What is your advice? How does the U.S. handle this threat?
The purpose of terrorism, of course, is not to kill people, really. It's to terrorize people. It's to alter behavior. It's to have individuals and groups of individuals change what they're doing to satisfy the terrorists. It seems to me that what President Trump did in Saudi Arabia is exactly the right thing to do. He spoke to some 50 heads of state from nations in that part of the world who are influential and able to talk to the people of that faith and begin to try to engage them and persuade them that the goal is not to train young people to go out and kill other people. It's to live and be a part of the society.
What do you think about him referring to them not as monsters, but as evil losers? They're losers, the terrorists.
I hope they are. A terrorist can attack any place, anytime, using any technique, and it's not possible to defend everywhere, at every moment of the day or night, against every conceivable approach.
Colonel, you and your son, you fight against these guys on the battlefield. Now that the fight seems to be in the cities, as you see what happened in Manchester, as you see in Nice, France, a terrorist behind the wheel of a truck just running over people. The battlefield has changed.
It is, and it has, and you know, it's very difficult for our guys in uniform to be out there in that environment. They're, you know, no matter where they are, they have to be on their toes and ready to do whatever needs to be done. So it's a difficult time for us, and as the Secretary said, we just need to, you know, stay on it, you know, take the offensive and do what needs to be done to defeat them.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary, what do you make of Donald Trump, President Donald Trump yesterday in front of all the NATO leaders saying, hey, great group, maybe not obsolete like I said last year, but you got to pay your fair share. There's only 5 of us that pay our fair share. Everybody else owes and should pay up.
I was ambassador to NATO, I don't know, 45 years ago. and we had the same message. It's not what they pay NATO, it's what they invest in their own defense as a part of a military alliance. And I don't know, I think there maybe are 5 or 6 countries who are hitting the NATO target of the United States is now, I think, below 4% of GDP, and our allies in the aggregate are below 2% of their GDPs, and they do have to step up. And President Trump was exactly right, and it's important that those countries understand that they have to, if they're going to be a part of a military alliance, they have to step up and invest in their defense.
Well, how do you characterize Russia today as a threat? There's some Baltic nations extremely concerned after watching what they did in Georgia and how they carve up the Ukraine. How does Donald Rumsfeld view Russia today?
Well, I think that if you want more of something, you reward it. If you want less of it, you penalize it in economics. And it seems to me that Putin has already said that the worst disaster was the end of the Soviet Union, and Russians have troops in the Republic of Georgia, for example. They're in Ukraine, and to the extent they find that that's comfortable for them and there's no penalty, they'll continue to do it and do more of it.
Colonel, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Okay, Colonel, we wanted to have you on with Secretary Rumsfeld because the two of you are teaming up, and we want to learn about that. But first, tell the folks at home, if they're not familiar with your son's story, who was such a hero. I interviewed you, I guess, a year or 2 years ago when your book came out called Brothers Forever, because Travis and his best friend were killed fighting for our country. This weekend, we remember both of those individuals as well as all the other men and women who have died fighting for our country. Tell us about Travis.
Travis, Naval Academy grad, his roommate Brendan Looney at the Naval Academy, Navy SEAL. My son was a Marine, did 2 tours in Iraq. Like so many of our young men and women today, they keep going back in harm's way. He was in Fallujah, Iraq, his first tour with 1st Recon Battalion, and on his second tour as a military transition team member, actually embedded with the Iraqis, he was ambushed and killed in action. And, you know, we were sort of living on with that memory and trying to, as my son would want, you know, to make something good come out of it. And that's what we're doing at the foundation.
The Travis Manion Foundation.
Which is, by the way, Mr. Secretary, the proceeds from your last book go to the Travis Manion Foundation, right?
True, and our foundation supports a number of military charities, and the Travis Manion Foundation, I think, is doing something particularly useful. I was one of the supporters and initiators of the all-volunteer military, and it's worked. We have the best military on the face of the earth, and one of the adverse aspects of that is fewer people serve, because instead of drafting everybody...
1% of the country, right?
Instead of drafting everybody and then having them go out after 18 months, we bring in people who raise their hand, volunteer, say we want to serve, and they stay in for longer periods. But what the foundation does is they send people out to meet with people in our society, often young people, and these are, I don't know, there's something like 150, I think, in your foundation that have gone out as presenters, and they're military people or veterans, and they meet with people who don't have that link to the United States military, and it seems to me that's important.
So the proceeds from the Churchill Solitaire book and app go to the Travis Manion Foundation. Right. Fellas, it's really nice to have you here on the program on this Friday before Memorial Day.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
How you doing as a family?
We're doing okay.
Good.
We're hanging in there.
We'll be thinking
Keep
about
fighting
y'all.
the fight.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
God bless you.
All right, 20 minutes now before the top of the hour on this Friday, and Jillian's got the news.
That's right, and we're just getting information in right now. Breaking news, reports of at least 23 people killed after gunmen opened fire on a Cairo bus carrying Coptic Christians. Egyptian State TV says 25 others were hurt. So far, no terror group has taken credit for the attack. We'll continue to follow this and update you with any new information we get. The U.S. is issuing fewer temporary visas to people from Muslim-majority countries. New data from the State Department showing 20% fewer visas were given out in April compared to the monthly average last year. The number dropping to 55% when it comes to the 6 countries included in the president's proposed immigration order. Okay, how about this? Compliments to the chef You're under arrest. ICE agents in Michigan sitting down for breakfast at a restaurant, then going back to the kitchen, complimenting the chef on the waffles, and arresting 3 workers. ICE says 2 of them entered the country illegally. The other overstayed a visa. The 3rd man was released after showing agents his permanent resident card. And this little girl accuses her teacher of committing a war crime in a hilarious teacher evaluation. The 11-year-old writing that her teacher shouldn't use collective punishment, citing the 1949 Geneva Convention. Her dad posting her response to Twitter with the caption, quote, "Not sure if I should ground her or buy her ice cream." Most people tweeting back saying she deserves that ice cream. I just am left wondering what flavor she would choose, guys.
Great question. All right, Jillian, thank you.
Thank you, Jillian.
All right, coming up on this Friday, a big program ahead. Former Secretary of Education Bill Bennett and current Homeland Security Secretary General John Kelly with us live next hour.
That is a big show. And Facebook falling short when it comes to taking down terrorist posts. Kurt the Cyber Guy is here next with that loophole that's just
to use social media to spread their hateful message. And according to leaked documents, they can easily bypass Facebook censorship and are capitalizing on that.
All right, in just 1 month, Facebook moderators found more than 1,300 posts that pose credible terrorist threats, but only removed a small fraction of them.
Well, here to explain is Kurt the Cyber Guy, Kurt Knutson. Hey, Kurt.
Ainsley, good morning, guys. I'm talking about 311 posts were identified and flagged by this group of people that are moderators at Facebook out of 1,340. And they suspected they were terrorists. Well, why didn't they forward them on to the authorities? And that's the question we're asking this morning. A 44-page document has been released that got out. It's been leaked from Facebook. It is the document that is used by the moderators inside of Facebook. And the moderators are the people. There's 4,500 of them right now. When you click that little button on a photo or a post that somebody made that says, hey, I think this is inappropriate or I think this is dangerous, that then triggers one of these human beings to take a look at that. Well, this 44-page guide now tells them how they should be treating these posts. And when it comes to terror-related posts, it's kind of frightening on what the guidelines are.
Absolutely, because if the bad guys know what the guidelines are, they can work around them.
And they are working around them. So, I mean, Facebook is just missing it here. They were missing it before this got leaked. But, for example, I mean, look at the kinds of things that can be posted, and you see this. So, you see this right here. It says, USA, we come for you. Follow the path to enlightenment. Well, on these posts, what it says is, that would be inappropriate, so it should be taken down. But if you show the same image that is all about terrorists doing terrorist kinds of awful things, but you say it in a shameful way, as if it shouldn't be there, or you're neutral, well, they're just going to leave it there.
Well, I mean, do you think they're sincerely approaching this worried about privacy, or do you think that there's a lack of fundamental understanding about the threat we're under?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think the big thing is Facebook's a business. It's about chasing away money. So first and foremost, they're concerned about the pocketbook. They need to be concerned about America. They need to be concerned about people. And they're doing a decent job. They've said with the 4,500 people, they're going to add 3,000. And when I say they're doing a decent job, decent is a low decent. They need to do a much better job because the kinds of stuff that's sneaking through is abhorrent. It's terrible. You should not be able to have this massive machine now have this kind of influence and then let the kinds of things go through where you could identify a terrorist and they don't flag them.
They put up a couple of pictures like that. It says, America, we're coming for you, and there's a shot of Al-Qaeda. Are they obligated morally to tell officials about what's been posted or just delete it and forget it? Neither which they seem to be doing.
This is the problem. So, and the transparency isn't there. We don't know what they're looking at. Yeah. There needs to be some form of oversight where you have some accountability there, because when you have 1,340 known terror posts and they're only flagging 311 of them, we got a problem.
Well, we did reach out to Facebook. We wanted to hear their side of the story. They did not get back to us. So.
We don't know if they deleted our email.
Right.
All right.
Kurt, thank you very much. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
All right. Meanwhile, straight ahead, his commencement went viral for all the right reasons.
So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
Make your bed. Now the commander of the Bin Laden mission, Admiral William McRaven, has more simple tips for how to change the world, and he's on next.
Is poverty just a state of mind? Ben Carson sparking outrage with that comment. But coming up, you're going to meet someone who rose from poverty and says Ben Carson is right.
The life that